Hello again, whiskey friends. I'm Durell. Thanks for joining for another review. This one should be a good one. It's an interesting bottle. It's a bottle I picked up actually in Cincinnati while doing a barrel pick over at Hard Truth in Indiana. So a couple days prior to doing that pick, I was hanging out with Mr. Jeffrey Wack, and we seen this bottle that we had heard about, so we kind of picked it up. So what we'll be doing today is a quick review on the Peerless High Rye. So it's a new bottle that Peerless put out this year. Altered the rye mash bill and just produced this. And this one is interesting. Stick with me. I'll let you know why I think it's interesting, if it's worth the pickup at the price point that it is. And you guys can kind of gauge from there if you think it's, worth that grab. All right, stay tuned. Stick with me for a few minutes. We're going to dive in right after this. Cheers. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. I kind of want to just dive right in. Like I mentioned earlier, I grabbed this bottle in Cincinnati at Party Sauce, a local liquor store to Jeffrey Wack out there, on the recommendation from Cameron from Drums and Drams. He talked about this bottle, I believe, on one of his streams and actually on our stream when we had him on our live, saying that it's really, really good. If you see it, it's worth the pickup. So when somebody like Cameron that has a great palate, says a bottle's typically worth the pickup, I tend to lean towards what they're saying. And, if I see it, I grab it. So me and Jeff both did the same that day. And we kind of cracked into it that same day. And this is the interesting part about it. So I'm just going to pour a little bit while we chat about this bottle. A little bit more in here. So this new Peerless, me and Jeff cracked it that same day that we got it, or maybe the day after or so. And immediately on the nose, we were both in consensus that it just came across slightly weird. The nose was just kind of funky and odd, and it wasn't like anything that I've really ever nosed before. And it's tough. I wish I kind of did like a quick review at that point, so I was able to pull the notes that, we kind of got up front then. But it was just odd, and it didn't seem as balanced as I wanted it to be. So I wasn't immediately happy. I guess both of us weren't immediately happy about the purchase, because it is, I believe, $120 or so retail, which is kind of high, for a bottle. When you're paying, over $100, you're hoping to get, some pretty good whiskey, especially on a recommendation from somebody, right, that has a great palate that says it's good. So I was I wouldn't say upset, but just wasn't as happy as I wanted to be with the whiskey that I got upon that first taste. What I will say, guys, with that being said, this thing changed drastically with air. And it's still pretty full, as you can see, so it's right under the neck a bit. But this thing, upon the second sip, was immediately different than what I remembered. And I immediately texted Jeff and was like, have you went back to this bottle? And he's like, dude, it changed as well. So for those who say whiskeys don't change with air, man, like this one, case in point, is absolutely, completely, utterly different than what it was the first time that me and Jeffrey had it. And I will say, from tasting it maybe about a week ago or a couple weeks prior to that as well, it's just getting better and better upon each time that I pour it. Kind of reminds me, not in terms of taste, but in terms of just how a whiskey's changed. The Calumet 16 for me, when that released last year, when I first tasted it, I did not really enjoy that bottle. But subsequently, every pour after that just got better and better and better. And that whiskey, I believe, landed in, I think, my top 10 to top 15 of the year of all whiskeys that I've had. Well, all whiskeys that I had of 2022. That bottle's a really, really good bottle, especially at that proof point too. It's only like 106 or something like that, I believe. But this reminds me of that in terms of just that experience, right? Like first tasting, not too great. Every taste after that, just better and better and better, right? So we're going to dive in, kind of review this quickly with you guys, over here on the channel. And we're just going to go from there, right? So you could take a peek, man. Peerless is pretty infamous for their dark colors. Everything's typically at barrel proof, right? So you're not going to get something that's typically too light. They're not watering it down any, right? So yeah, let's just go in. So that nose right up front, you could tell that there's a decent amount of rye, or it's just maybe just a little slightly ethanol forward. But being that it's a high rye, I'm contributing the spice that I'm getting up front, to that rye. But it's definitely got like a potent nose. Like it's not overpowering or overwhelming. It's 110 proof, but it definitely lets you know that there's some spice and some ethanol there. Nice vanillas, oak. There's like a nice like cherry note, almost slightly medicinal to an extent, like a Luden's, like the sweeter of the cough drops, not like that Hall's cough drop, but it has like a nice cherry note there that I'm digging. That's funny. I got a little hair that flew into my whiskey. Look at that. That's funny. All on video for you guys. But yeah, the nose is nice. And I remember, like I said, originally just not being balanced. Like, and this just flows. Like you got that oak up front, you got the spice, you got the vanilla, and it's a sweet oak that's nice, but nothing's overpowering. I just remember it being slightly funky and just kind of disjointed originally. But all that is gone after, letting it sit open for a few weeks or so. All right, let's go in for a taste, guys. Cheers. Yeah, you just get like this nice spicy cherry, get a little bit of cola in it. That oak is definitely present, but that rye spice takes over front to mid palate. All you get, well, not all you get, but it bursts and it just sits on your tongue nicely. I will say the finish may be not as long as I want it to be, but the flavors are very present on the finish, if that makes any sense. It just doesn't sit in your mouth for a long time, right? But all those flavors hit you from front to mid to back. And it's very viscous too. You guys, let me see if the camera can pick up the legs on this, but this thing is nice. Let's see if it picks it up. Yeah, you can see that. Like a lot of hang time over there. On maybe a 4-year-old whiskey. Peerless really isn't putting any older stuff out. I know when I was out there, I think their oldest at the time, which was in 2021, I want to say was maybe like a 6 or 7-year-old whiskey, right? So, and that was a single barrel. These are batched, so I'm guessing maybe 3 to max 5 years old or so. But this is coming across to me slightly older. And it almost seems like it's finished. Like that high rye is just throwing like a wrench in it, but a good wrench. It's different than just say they're double oaks, they're regular single barrels, completely different, obviously, from the rye single barrels that they're putting out. But it's just a very, very nice profile now. Like I said, I think this bottle at retail, I believe, was about $120. It's tough when you're not getting an age statement on a whiskey, but I kind of like to base my buys on taste, right? So if it is a little pricey, but if it tastes good, then for me, it works. For some, they want to see high age statements if they're, paying over $100 or so. But I kind of like to just leave that out and almost like treat it as just say a blind tasting, right? That's how you trick some people. You can put $30 and $40 whiskeys in these blinds that beat out what they would normally pay, or even just say secondary $500, $600, $700, right? And I'm infamous for doing that, because price is subjective, right? But taste is pretty much everything. You know, you get a really good whiskey, you know, that could be at almost the bottom shelf against somebody's like unicorn bottle, and sometimes those bottom shelfers are better, right? So this right here, I wouldn't say it's not bottom shelf by any means, but it takes that into account a bit, right? So it's a little pricey at 120. It's not age stated, you know, it's fairly young, but for me personally, I find the taste profile enjoyable, you know, so I wouldn't mind picking up another bottle at retail, or even just referring this bottle like Cameron did to us, you know, to you guys out there. I think it's worth it at 120. Would I pay any more than that? It starts to get a little tough. You know, as good as it is, I think at that price point is probably the max for me. I would honestly like to see it a little lower, maybe about 89 to 95 or $100. You know, so 120 is right at that cusp of me saying, hey, I'll just let it sit there. I know it's good, but for $120, I can get some other whiskey that maybe even better, right? But worth the pickup to have on your bar. I say yes at that retail cost. Just don't go out of your way paying extra money for it, right? But we're going to give it one more taste, guys. Then we're going to cut you loose. Yeah. That cherry shines. It's literally, for me, it's like spicy cherry cola. Give me a cherry Coca-Cola, throw some spice in there. Nice vanilla, that sweetness. It's like, this goes down really easy. Granted, it is 110 proof, so it's not a high barrel proof, but this drinks very, very easily. And I just want to keep sipping it. Like, it's good. It's really good. To put it in perspective, you know, most of our bottles that typically we review and rank on our scoring sheet, anything that's pretty good to like excellent is in that 80 range of our score sheet. This bottle came in at an 84, which is a really good buy. You know, it's definitely a whiskey that at that score, we're typically going to recommend to everybody else, right? Anything in the 80s, I think, is a recommend. You know, when it starts dropping above those 80s, you kind of maybe shy away from, you know, trying to introduce this whiskey to somebody else. But this scored really, really high. The flavors, for me, like, the only thing that was really lacking, right, was price point, being at it's $120 for a non-age stated, maybe 3 to 5 year old whiskey, and the finish. Although you get a ton of flavor on the finish, just the length of the finish wasn't as long as I wanted it to be. You know, and that's maybe expected from, you know, 110 proof, right? Like, it's not a super high barrel proof. So it's a slightly negative for me, but like I said, it's kind of what's expected from a whiskey at that proof point. But like I said, the flavors sit on your mouth, sit on your tongue, and it almost is kind of like a finish, because you still have that flavor there, but you just don't have that tingling or burning sensation from the finish sitting on your tongue, which you would normally get on just say something that has a very lengthy finish, right? But with that being said, like, there's not many cons, you know. Longer finish, it could have been, you know, but other than that, like, this is a really good whiskey coming from Peerless, guys. Like I said, if you see it at retail or maybe a couple bucks above it, I say it's a buy. You know, anything north of just say 130, 140, I would say it's a try before you buy. You know, see if somebody has a sample that you could try, just to make sure that you're not disappointed with the purchase. You know, but at retail, I say buy it. I think it's worthy of a backup because it's different than most of the bourbons that I have on my shelf. And I have some high rise, but Peerless is just putting out some different stuff. Like, that profile for me, I like, because it's just different. You know, it's not sourced MGP. It's not like the heritage brands, the turkeys, the beams, like what everybody's drinking now, right? You know, it's different. And me, I take pride in having different whiskeys on my bar. You know, I don't want to have everything that everybody has, you know, so I try to open my profile up to, you know, a couple different things. And this is one of them. Peerless, for me, has hit it out the park with a few releases, actually multiple releases. I really haven't had anything bad. I know there's some iffy bottles from them that I've heard, but I haven't had those to actually even be the judge of. But this one in particular, guys, I find it very good. I don't want to keep you too long. I've been probably running my mouth for a while now, but thank you for those who, stuck with me. This Peerless is a banger, in my opinion, worth the pickup. Give it a try if you see it sitting on your shelves, guys. We're going to end it here with some tunes from David over at whiskeychannel.com. Till next time, take it easy, guys. Cheers.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends.